Hey everyone, good Friday. Today kind of kicks off our first live session where we're going to speak about the state of corporate L&D in Malaysia. And we're going to be calling this series Connections by TalentStore. One of the reasons why we wanted to kick this off is because we wanted to get a little bit more clarity and understanding and insight from the corporate L&D players in Malaysia, right? Whether you're a training provider, a freelance trainer, if you're on the supply side, or if you're a L&D practitioner, a HR practitioner on the demand side, we wanted to hear your perspectives and to understand how we can add more value into the industry. So today we have a very interesting guest on the show, Mr. Arulkumar. He's the co-founder of the Malaysian HR Forum, and he's been in the L&D scene for a long time. And I think we're going to get a lot of perspective on from his point of view on the state of L&D in Malaysia. So I just want to welcome Arul to the show. Maybe we can start off with you introducing yourself and giving our viewers a small context about what you have done in L&D.
Thanks, Arun. Thanks a lot, Arun, for having me today. Good afternoon to you and also to all the listeners that is listening in today. So I mean, as I'm attached to HR Forum, which I co-founded 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to be more specific.
Right.
And we started off as a HR community in Facebook, and things got a little bit serious, and we saw the opportunity,
Yep.
uh, to really run it as an organization. So from a Facebook community, we became an organization. So what do we do today? We do a couple of a couple of branches of our services. One is, of course, we are a training provider, so we provide training to corporate clients, be it in-house programs, be it public programs. We also have our small consulting and advisory arm. So
Okay.
yeah, so we consult HR matters on employment law, industrial relations, and so on. And we also have the conference arm. We also organize HR conferences. So, but again, we are at a very infant stage of the conference business. Hopefully,
Okay.
our next exercise, which is next month, that we organize a large-scale HR forum and conference in Berjaya Times Square. So that
Yep.
will be, the start of something much bigger that we intend to do.
Interesting.
And yeah, so these are all our commercial ventures, but one
Yep.
of our main focus is capacity building. So
Okay.
this is where the Facebook community comes into play. It's a free community. We have got over 34,500 members in that platform, and it's really free. So where any HR practitioners, any business owners, or anyone who wants to learn on the topic of Employment Act, industrial relations, that's the platform to be, where you get tons of information, of documents. We run webinars, and we discuss HR issues. We provide guidelines, FAQs, templates, policies, and everything entirely free for anyone who wishes to learn on HR. Yep.
Nice.
So that's
Oh,
part of our capacity building, lah. You can call it our CSR arm or capacity
okay.
building. Yes, go ahead.
All right. Cool. Very nice. Actually, before we continue, Arul, we have a bit of feedback from your mic, so we just want to correct that in the beginning. Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I can.
Sure. No problem.
Is it loud? Is it better now?
Yeah. I think it's when it rubs against your shirt, or probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, much better, much better. Right. So I think great introduction. I think we get a better sense of what you do. Um, it's very interesting. I mean, I've never heard of a business that got started from a Facebook group and then kind of the momentum kind of built and actually created a real enterprise. So I'm pretty sure you get a lot of insights from all those members. I wanted to get your perspective on learning and development, especially over the last few years we've kind of moved from pre-pandemic phase, then we went through kind of like a blackout in 2020, I guess, and now post-pandemic. How have you seen the change happening? Because obviously you get a lot of insight from your members. What are the fundamental shifts that you've seen happen in the L&D space?
But this is something interesting because we are going to compare between business as usual situation, which
Yep.
happened before pandemic. Then we had a situation where businesses were scrambling around, trying to keep the business afloat. Of course, we know some industries. such as the glove industry, and certain industries, they made
Yep.
money, but there
Yep.
were many industries that had to, contract. They had to close down or size down and hibernate, etc. And of course, today we are back to business as usual, but with a little twist. So I
Mm.
would say that the training arena, the L&D arena, it's much more intense today compared to what it was before
Mm.
pandemic.
Okay.
Pandemic, it may be a little bit of a side example.
Yeah.
Now, I would also attribute this to the government's push to have more training, activities,
Yeah.
uh, you know, out there. So we know that government via HRD Corp, Talent Corp, and many other agencies, they have spent, a lot of time and effort, issuing grants to spur learning and development.
Yep.
And simply, one of the main reasons is because there's quite a number of unemployed Malaysians who got retrenched during the pandemic. So
Sure.
to reskill and upskill themselves, government, pumped in a lot of money
Right.
through various plans and programs through many agencies to spur learning and development. But I think what is happening now is that is slowly coming to a closure, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have very soon the National Training Week that is organized by HRD
Yep.
Corp, trying to get more Malaysians to participate in trainings and so on. So I would
True.
say that things are much more intense today as
Okay.
compared to what it was prior to pandemic.
All
And
right. So
we
you.
also, yeah, we also see mushrooming of, learning management systems,
Right.
by HRD Corp, Elate, for example, there are tons of programs there. We also
Yep.
have local, private training providers entering the
Yep.
market space, promoting their learning tools where you've got plenty of trainings. So I would say that, things are much more intense today compared to
Mm-hmm.
what it was before pandemic.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely agree. I think we saw a lot more intentional intervention, lah, right, where the government kind of had to step in, especially given all the unemployment that was happening during the pandemic. From a perspective of a participant, that means somebody who actually goes through one of these trainings, has it changed? Like taking the pre and post pandemic, obviously we were very used to the physical classroom
Mhm.
workshop style
Yep.
approach, and then we went into fully digital, then into hybrid virtual. you know are you seeing any changes from the participant point of view?
Yes, of course. I mean, what you've mentioned, the mode of delivery
Yeah.
has, I wouldn't say changed entirely, but we now have a new mode of delivery, which is the online mode, right?
Okay.
Before pandemic, online learning was there, but not as, as intense as what we see today.
Sure.
I mean, we hardly know what is Zoom all about before
Yeah.
pandemic, but today Zoom is like a household name. Almost every Malaysian, they know what is Zoom or
Yeah.
Google Meet, right?
Yeah.
So the mode of delivery, has transformed or has evolved. So today we have equal participation in face-to-face learning as well as online learning. So that's
Right.
one change that has happened.
Sure.
And the other thing that has happened is also the type of program or the subjects that people are now very much into. So one area that I see quite common, quite frequent, is areas like digital marketing.
Hmm. Okay.
We have, yeah, we have areas like those related to tech, because
Yep.
IT industry became one of the I would say popular arena for job seekers, for trainers, etc. So we have
Sure.
got today a lot of organizations, participants who are very much into IT related training or technology related training.
Okay.
So these are the two key things that I see today: mode of
Uh-huh.
delivery and the type of programs that is, sought after now.
Okay. And likewise, from the perspective of our L&D providers, training providers, freelancers, are you also seeing a similar shift where they are starting to be more scoped down in terms of what they're offering to the market, or is there still a huge variety of options?
Okay, that's something interesting. I would say that it is still, the variety is still there. It's still
Yep.
huge, but many providers, some that I know personally, and what I see in, day to day reading, many have also gone into different scopes of, or different methods or different subjects. For
Yep.
example, those who are purely in soft skills, behavioral skills, behavioral interview, leadership, supervisory, etc.
Sure. Yep.
Today they are also into some technology related matters. right?
Okay.
And I think what we also can also pick up the gig economy. Be it
Right.
let's put those guys who are delivering food and into e-hailing, but influencers is a new trend today, right?
Sure.
So influencer marketing.
Yeah.
We talk about people who are doing digital selling, etc. So this has transformed. uh, MDEC, for example, they have also joined the bandwagon, promoted
Right.
promoted trainings on digital marketing, cyber security, etc. So this is another area where many training providers have gone into. And what we're
Right.
also seeing lately is the enhancement or the active participation into TVET programs.
TVET. Yep.
Yep. So this is very much spoken, whether it's by government, whether it's by private sector, whether it's by academia, whether it's by industry.
Sure.
TVET is being very much spoken, and I think government is also putting a lot of emphasis on TVET education. So what we see today, as compared to before, we see more areas like cybersecurity, digital
Right.
marketing,
Yep.
the TVET skills education,
Okay.
right? Yep.
Interesting. And if so, you kind of give us a good perspective. And if I were to pin you down and ask you, what are some of the gaps that still exist then, right? It seems like we've expanded our delivery options, the skill sets that we tend to offer the market. But what do you think are some of the main gaps that still exist? And then after that, we can kind of explore some of the opportunities, lah. But let's start off with the gaps. Well, what
Yep.
gaps do you see?
So I think what we don't have is a scheme of coordination. So
Okay.
this is something personally I feel is lacking. So someone pursues a particular program or qualification. So
Okay.
what's next for him or her?
Right. Right.
Now, how do we tie this into the bigger picture?
Yeah.
So if I were to put a term to it, let's call it scheme of coordination.
Okay.
Now, when we look at academic programs, okay, I finish high school, I go into college, then I do up my diploma, for
Yeah.
example, then I do up my degree. So there's a continuity, there's a pattern for me
Yeah.
to move from level one to level two to level three. But what we don't see in the training arena is how do I leverage on these programs to reach my ultimate goal?
Right.
And I think this is where probably government can also help us to look into, but also training providers to to give participants
Sure.
a clearer idea, to give corporate clear idea. How can we, it's not just hit and run
Yeah.
training, right?
Yeah.
I complete, I'm done with it. But how can you evolve from stage one to stage two to stage three, and to reach the ultimate point that one wants to be?
Right. I completely agree with you. I think that in certain tech skill sets, I think there is kind of a clear step-by-step process, right? If you want to be a programmer, you have certain steps or certain languages that you need to get through to get to that point. But I understand. I mean, like for a person that's going through a leadership program, there isn't a very clear structure
Yep.
to it to get from a junior position to a frontline leader to a
Yep.
manager, senior manager, etc. Yeah, completely agree.
I mean, yeah, just to add on as well, just to add on. So even when it
Sure.
comes to technology, yeah,
Yeah.
today we see programs such as Python or Java, C Sharp, etc. But
Yep.
even then, uh, training someone on Python, for example, a 5-day program or a 10-day program,
Yep.
without the right foundation,
Mm,
right? So, I mean, what I know about programmers, I'm not an IT guy, but I was involved in the IT education before. They
right.
need to learn syntax. They need to learn,
The basic.
this,
Oh,
yeah, correct. So the syntax and whatnot
yes.
before you go into the programming per se. But
Yep.
today, when someone goes directly into the programming itself without knowing the syntax, etc., so they may be, it may be a handicap approach,
Yep.
right? So this is one aspect that I see today, because when
Right.
someone attends a training program, we expect them to be able to be ready to run the show. They got to be plug and play person,
Yep.
which unfortunately we don't hear this in many cases.
Right. Exactly. No, I completely agree with you. I think the definition of what the course covers needs to be very clear, lah. Right. If you're just throwing them in the middle, it kind of negates the entire learning process. Yeah, I completely agree. So if we pivot now down to the opportunities you see, what are some of the big opportunities that you see? And it doesn't have to be something that we can immediately implement, what do you see generally from the longer term view that corporate training can really benefit in Malaysia specifically?
Yep. I think the market is huge. You see, the training industry, if you look at it from a training provider's perspective,
Okay.
right? So let me break up my reply from a training provider's perspective, from the government's perspective, and from the user's perspective. User could
Yep.
be corporate clients, could be individual users, and so on. So from a training provider perspective, we all know a training industry is a very tough industry. It's a very competitive, very
Yep.
saturated industry, but it is an evergreen industry,
Okay.
right? So we know that there are more companies contributing HRDF today.
Sure.
So
Yep.
the levy collection is on, is increasing, and
Exactly.
more organizations are coming into existence and so on. So I would say that opportunities are there, but for training providers is what area do you want to focus on? Do you want to
Right.
be a jack of all, master of none? That's something for training providers to look at.
Mm.
For the end users, I would say that they have a much bigger bargain today compared to before. The number of training providers are more than before. The
Yep.
mode of delivery is more than before. So today, for example, they can even pursue micro credential programs. All these
Yep.
short programs. So there's micro credential programs. There's also online learning programs. There is also offline learning programs. There are also free programs offered by HRD Corp and a few other, many others.
Yeah.
So I would say that the one who is at the sweet spot today is the end users,
That's right.
right? And some programs, of course, you got to pay for it, but there are also many free programs for them,
Sure.
whether it's end user, whether it's organization. Now, from the government perspective, I would say that government today they have got wider options in terms of training providers, in terms of providers,
Yep.
be it universities, be it training providers, and so on. But I think the challenge for government is how do they get this in a more organized fashion, instead of running
Right. Okay.
instead of running it on an ad hoc basis here, there, etc. Because there are
Yep.
so many agencies involved.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Okay.
so I go back to my phrase just now. Scheme of coordination may be required. So I would say that when we look at these three perspectives, everybody has got plenty of things on their plate. How do you now make the best use of it to achieve the agenda or to achieve the objectives?
Okay. No, interesting. I mean, yeah, definitely. I think it's a very saturated market. A lot of players on both sides, right? Even from the government perspective, they have certain mandates to achieve, and obviously, training companies want to be as profitable as possible. So everyone's kind of vying for a similar pie, lah, right? But definitely, there's a lot of opportunities if you really scope down and you find a niche and you're really excellent in that niche, lah, right? So great. I mean, I think we want to take a short break, and we'll come back after a short video montage that our producer has kind of put together, and we'll see you right after that video.
Nice.
All right. Thanks, Matt, for that. So let's get back to this, right? It's very interesting. I think that, before the video, we kind of spoke a little bit more of the Malaysian context, looking at it from solely the country's perspective. Now, let's take a higher level view of the ASEAN or the regional context. Obviously, ASEAN is very unique as a region because every country is very local. The local language kind of dominates the market, right? So even if you just go to Thailand or Indonesia, majority of trainings happen in the local language. But I'm pretty sure there are a lot of strengths that we can leverage from all of these different countries to make the corporate L&D scene in ASEAN a lot stronger. So from your perspective, where do you think we can really leverage some of these key strengths, and how can we help nurture and foster a stronger L&D industry in the region?
Well, I mean, when we say ASEAN, it's a bit unique because in ASEAN we have got leading economy, then we have got economies that are doing well, and there are also economies that is still at a very infant stage, put it that way.
Yeah,
So the closest country that I can think of that we can learn a lot from is probably Singapore.
sure.
And I think Malaysia is also in a position where they also export, out to other countries in terms
Yeah,
of, trading. So
training.
when we look at Singapore, for example, uh, I think their skills development, is probably much more well coordinated,
Hmm.
and also when it comes to corporate training and so on. So,
Okay,
yep. So leveraging on how Singapore does it, I think we are not. In fact, I would say Malaysia is not in a very bad position. We are in a good position as well,
sure.
right? We are probably on par with Singapore. Maybe on par, maybe just a little bit behind them, but we are not too far off. So I would say that what Malaysia could learn is to learn the best practices from Singapore. How do they upskill their workforce in a more coordinated fashion?
Yeah,
Uh, yep. Be it technical skills, be it skills that's required for the industry and so on, and all the others. But at the same time, what Malaysia could do is to export what we already have. For
right.
example, what I've learned is we have a very organized corporate. You know, uh, when we look at HRD Corp, right? So they hold a mandate to ensure that companies
Sure.
invest in training.
Yeah,
This model is not existent in many other countries in ASEAN,
exactly.
right? So this is one aspect where Malaysia is much more advanced than this country. So we could, you know, export some of this know-how, some of this technology, some of this way of doing things to these countries. As we speak, I was in a conversation earlier on today, where one of the training providers in Malaysia has made a small niche segment or has made a market in Cambodia, for example,
Sure.
and he's very much happy there, and he feels that there's much more room in Cambodia compared to Malaysia because the competition there is not as stiff as what is in Malaysia.
Definitely.
So I would say that we could export some of our capabilities to these countries while we continue to learn good practices from countries like Singapore and others, right? But when we go beyond ASEAN, there's much more good examples to look at.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think we are all on different spectrums, right? So Singapore might be leading the race in ASEAN in terms of their structure. But I think, yes, we are quite fortunate because I think there are only a very few countries in the world that have that structure that HRDF or HRDC has created, right? I think Singapore has something similar as well. Um, and other countries do not. So in a way, Malaysian organizations are forced to think about learning development for their employees, and that's something that we definitely should replicate in other countries. Only the only debate is really how structured or how unstructured do we want it, right? Um, and like, do you see any best practices? Like you spoke about Singapore and how they may be slightly ahead of us. Are there any specific best practices that you can think of that we Malaysians can kind of implement, right? Whether you're a customer or a supplier or even an end user as a participant in one of these sessions, are there any things that come to mind?
I think it's a bit tricky to answer this question because
Sure.
there are many aspects to look at, from the mode of delivery, from the type of programs, to the pricing of these programs. Is a bit tricky to look at this. But I think one thing that I could probably say, and this is more to the technical side. So
Okay.
when we look at how Singapore has structured their technical programs, I just can't recall the name at this moment. How they've structured their technical programs. Now that technique. So Singapore today, if you look at their economy, they are at the upper value chain of
Yeah.
manufacturing, for example, right?
Correct.
So they no longer do those low level manufacturing.
Yeah.
So how, and this is another issue that Malaysia has because we are still relying on foreign laborers, right?
Yes.
So how do we move up the value chain by by doing less on those labor intense manufacturing and moving to more skill based or high tech manufacturing.
Yeah.
So this is something that we can learn from Singapore.
Okay. No, definitely. I think, yeah, you're right. They are at a different value chain, right? I
Yeah.
always get that example of the Changi Airport, where, in Changi Airport, it's no longer about getting your bags on time. I think they've already kind of perfected that. It's more about like how do we create a customer experience that you don't want to leave the airport, right? So
Yep.
they are a different challenge or a value point that they are trying to solve, right? And I think we need to kind of move in tandem as well as fast as we can to reach that level too. Yeah,
Yep. We're not that bad. We are
sure,
moving
sure.
quite fast. Yep. Matter of time, we'll be there as well.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And pretty much some of the last few questions before we wrap it up for today. I know it's Friday, so I don't want to keep people on for too long. I want to speak about Malaysia HR Forum lah. I want to hear, what you guys, how you guys adding value in the L&D community. I know you guys have a conference that's coming up. Maybe you can touch upon that as well.
Sure.
You might as well use this as a way to kind of spread the message too. Just talk to me a little bit about Malaysia HR Forum.
Yep. So what has happened is, we can't be master of all. So, it's good to specialize in certain areas that you can really be the one of the best one to go for, right?
Sure.
So we have chosen, industrial relations, employment law, and HR operations as our main, offering to the market.
Okay.
So much so that what has happened, we grew from a very small, two-man platform. Basically, it was me and Hira Singh, in 2020 during COVID. We
Yeah.
started this, and today it has grown from, two of us, to 35,000 or 34,500 today. And so much so that any organizations, any companies, any HR practitioners, if they want any resources to resolve their HR operations, right? Be it
Right.
setting up a new policy, etc. We are the savior for them. We have got almost everything there ready made, and the best part is free. So we have chosen this area, just like some companies would have chosen on, personality,
Yeah.
psychometric testing, personality testing. Some would have chosen on leadership, right?
Yeah.
So we have chosen on HR operations,
Okay.
right?
Good to hear.
And we want to be one of the leading players in this arena,
Yeah.
and probably make a household name down the road.
Amazing.
Yep.
No, glad to hear that. I mean, I'm super impressed by the fact that you went from 2 to 34,500 in 2 years. In 2 years.
2.5 years, 2.5 years to be more
Yeah,
specific. Yep.
yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yep.
We should definitely connect offline to figure out how you guys did that. Um, and last message for you before we kind of wrap up for today. What's your hope for L&D Malaysia? If you could go 10 years into the future, what's your vision of that 10-year kind of timeline? What do you see in 10 years?
So my wish for, L&D community, as well as Malaysia as a country, is
Sure.
that each and every Malaysian out there, right? We are an expert or skill at something that we can contribute to the nation,
Mm,
right? Each and every one. The only challenge I see here is, we need to. I mean, we as training providers, or the government as, as one of the, I mean, as an authority, we need to have a framework so that
right.
each and every Malaysian can participate in this framework.
Okay.
So, and it's going to be a coordinated framework. It cannot be on a piecemeal basis.
Peace. Yep.
Yeah, many
Got it.
things today are on piecemeal basis. So
Agreed.
so it is going to be coordinated, so that each and every Malaysian can contribute, and as well as make a living for them. So one way to reduce unemployment is to ensure that everyone has a particular skill in a particular area, and they have a job waiting for them,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So that is the bigger objective of things. The second wish list that I have is, for the training providers, when we do training, we got to ensure that it is not just we should not be in just for the money,
Right.
right? We need to ensure that whatever we do, we are able to deliver value to the
Mm.
clients, or we deliver value to
Yep.
the audience.
Yep. Completely agree. Yep. All right. Thank you so much. Actually, we just have one question that
Sure.
I wanted to bring up. Maybe you could answer it. So thanks, Sashi, for the question. So his question is, with so many different training providers and programs, what would be the best way to evaluate the effectiveness from the participant perspective? I guess this is the million-dollar question.
But honestly speaking, Sashi, and Arun, this is a in fact, this is a commonly asked question.
Yeah.
And I used to say this to some of the companies that we do training. We do their training and so on. And I always tell them this. It is going to be hard to transform someone over 2 days, for example, or over 3 days, depending on the program. It can be 1 day, 2 day, 3 day.
Sure.
It is going to be hard to transform someone, or it's going to be hard to change someone's mindset over 2 days, which you have not, which you could not do over the last 2 years or 5 years or 10 years,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes companies, they expect, okay, if I send someone to your training, I will see a new person altogether after two
Yes.
days. Now that's not going to happen. So what we do is normally we do a bit of expectation setting. What do you
Right.
want to achieve at it? By you participating in this program, what do you want to achieve? And I also tell participants, if you follow attentively, if you follow the trainings that
The
the trainer
program.
is delivering, the program, etc.,
Yeah.
you could walk away with 10% learning, right? A program is only effective if you're able to get it implemented,
Right.
right? So if you look at the learning model, it's 70, 20, 10.
Mm.
70% is on the job, 20% is coaching, mentoring, and 10% is learning.
Yeah.
So I always tell this to our clients. Once your employee have completed the training program, you now need to ensure that you are able to assign them tasks that they can start practicing what they've learned.
Yeah.
That
Application.
is the best way. So having a pre-test, post-test, it's an academic exercise,
Mm.
right? So let's say before the test, okay, the know-how is about 50%. After the program is over, the know-how is about 70%. Now
Yeah.
that is on paper, right? So I would call this more of exam. Just like we go to university, we
Sure.
score A plus, or A1 for a particular subject. But when
Yeah.
we start working, can we deliver? So
Yeah.
that's a different story,
Mm.
right? So we need to systematize things in a way. Once the training program is completed, we need to get the client or the end user, the company, to get them, these participants, to practice or to put into practice what they've learned in the classroom,
Right.
and then go back after 1 month to evaluate what they're doing today. Yep. I'm not
Okay.
saying pre-test and post-test. It's good to have, but it does not really guarantee
Yeah.
the outcome.
Okay. Interesting. Hopefully, Sashi, that answers your question. You know, he has a response. Let me just take it. Yeah, so he thanks you for your message. I think he just wants to inspiring themselves to lead themselves to self-learn lah. That I think is the end goal lah, right? So that they can eventually apply it in their day-to-day roles. Yep. So thank you, everyone. We're gonna wrap up for today, but before we do that, we got a couple of mentions of things that are coming up. So first off, I think we have a session next Friday with somebody who's quite well known in the learning space. I think most of you would know Maverick Fu, especially if you're from the L&D supply side or even clients. He's very well known in the space, and I think this session is more for your trainers out there, your freelance trainers, your training providers, and he's going to be talking about how you can, up your game, take your earning level to the next phase to really get more from your side hustle or your day-to-day roles. And lastly, we are also having a very unique training session that's happening next month. This is going to be a public program, and it's a very interesting program called Inside Risk. So Inside Risk is a program where you learn through immersive storytelling, and it's going to be held on the 7th of June, fully claimable from HRDC. If you're interested, do take a look at it, and or you can reach out to us directly. But I want to leave you with a short trailer of Inside Race. I think it's a fantastic program, and thanks everyone for tuning in today. We really enjoyed the participation, some of the questions, and thank you, Arul, for the candid casual chat that we had on L&D. Hope to connect with you offline, and let's take it forward.
This is not another TV series or masterclass. This is not about hearing some theories about leadership development or crisis management. This is a groundbreaking approach to experiential learning, where you learn through tough practice. In this journey, you will step into the shoes of TV5 Monde CEO Yves Bigot. On the night of April 15, 2015, the network fell victim to one of the most brutal cyber attacks ever led against a media group. Immersed in the story as Eve, you will see how and why he made his decisions during the attack, and you will be asked to face the same choices yourself. You will experience game-changing ideas from best-selling books and the most advanced research, allowing you to deploy these ideas in the context of your own life and professional environment. And you will benchmark yourself against your peers and against Eve himself. Ready? I'll see you very soon.